Welcome to the Samson Strength Coach Collective podcast. In this podcast today, we're joined by Robert Schmidt. He is a longtime friend of mine. We interned together back at the University of Alabama in 2017. He is the Assistant Athletic Director of Sport Performance and Student Wellness at Monsignor Farrell High School. The criteria, the gauge of one's knowledge as a strength and conditioning coach isn't necessarily what you can do with a ton of tools at your disposal, right? He's in a situation right now where they're undergoing a weight room renovation at the high school level, and he's currently training high school athletes out of a hallway with, some barbells, some plates. He's got a little bit of a field exposure, right? So a ton of good insight as far as his experience go. I really hope you enjoy this one. Let's get to it. All right. Welcome to the Samson Strength Coach Collective podcast here for another episode. I'm your host, Anthony Grasso. Today, we are joined by Robert Schmidt. He is the Assistant Athletic Director of Sport Performance and Student Wellness at Monsignor Farrell High School. It's actually a place where he went to high school and played football there. So we're super happy to have him here today. Good friend of mine. We interned together at Alabama, which we'll probably tell some interesting stories about later on. But just to give you a little bit more background on Rob, played football at Dickinson College after he graduated in PA for 2 years, and then he earned his bachelor's degree in sports science from Long Island University in Brooklyn. He's currently pursuing his master's from Ball State. And what are you pursuing your master's in, Rob?
Sports administration. Coaching.
Oh, okay. Coaching. Yeah. Okay. And then obviously just to give you a little bit of a run through, like I typically do, the places that he's been. So you got South Carolina, obviously I mentioned the University of Alabama, Defiance College, Ball State, and he was the head of high school strength and conditioning for the New York Sports Science Lab on Staten Island. So some, quite an interesting kind of background there. And he's obviously a certified strength and conditioning specialist, the NSCA, and the National Academy of Sports Medicine corrective exercise specialist. So Staten Island's very own Rob Schmidt. Welcome, man. Pumped to have you on here. Really appreciate you doing this on such short notice. Why don't you, obviously I kind of already listed out some of the places you've been. Why don't you kind of take me through this story of, where this whole thing started for you, go back as far as you like, and then how it kind of led you to where you're at now, obviously as the title that you hold for the high school that you actually went to.
Yeah. So, like Tony said, I started at Dickinson College, played football there for 2 years. Ended my career a little bit early because of sports injuries and not going to the NFL as a 5'9" D3 linebacker. So, but then I ended up going to LU Brooklyn and getting into the sports science and trying to really major in something that I wanted to do. And happened to be, I wanted to be more like a football coach, like a sport coach. And I couldn't really find a way in there because my school didn't have a football team. So I saw on the football scoop a bunch of internships for strength jobs. So I was like, it might as well be a foot in the door. And through that, I ended up going to the University of South Carolina, where I still have lots of friends that I interned with. We had a big intern class there. And I saw how the whole strength staff was with the football team every single day during the summertime and the relationships they had versus like the football coaches who weren't really around during those periods. And it really opened my mind and see how like I might want to pursue this career rather than like a football coach. And I met some really good mentors there and some really good friends, and a guy in the name of David Feely, who is the head strength and conditioning coach at Duke right now. Really got a good relationship with him and became kind of like my mentor and guided me down this path. Then really enjoyed my summer there. After that, went back to school, went to University of Alabama. They had some similar connections from South Carolina. That's where I actually met Tony. We had some fun times, some real good conversations, interesting atmosphere, to say the least.
That's how I always describe that experience. I'm just like, it was an important, interesting experience. That's how I just feel.
Yeah. Learn things on what to do, what not to do, and culture and stuff like that. Really good place, really good atmosphere. And then after that, finished up school, and like right after I graduated, I had no idea what I was going to do. I had nothing lined up. Got a call for a football coach and a strength coach job at a small Division III school in Ohio, Defiance, and literally packed up my bags the day after I graduated, and 2 days later, drove out to Ohio and started working there. And that was a real interesting experience because like D3 football, there's not mandatory lifts, nothing like that. And I was also a football coach doing recruiting at the same exact time through text messages and Twitter and email, and all through like a recruiting database, which I've never had no experience doing before. And actually, I was almost like a teacher at the school because like all our workouts and our time training sessions were like a class that the football players took. So like that's how that was like, it was optional. Like, so if the football players wanted to lift, they got to lift. It was like a specific class. So they just trained during their class schedule. And that's how it worked with there. And it was pretty interesting, you know what I mean? Like a very low budget school, a very small school in the middle of nowhere. I like to say there was one stoplight in the town. And a big boy from like the Austin Powers movie was there. I've never seen one of those before.
Really?
Yeah. So did that. Went to like an 8 to 10, my first 8 to 10 weeks there. Then we started spring ball and we had low roster numbers. And I was playing some scout team defense and scout team offense while running warm-ups and morning conditioning and speed sessions. And it was a great experience. Lots of hands-on work, you know what I mean? Never really, and I was in charge. I mean, so never really had like someone like been around through somewhere like a whole year before, not knowing like what a true cycle should look like. Right. And then just happenstance, the head coach at Defiance at the time was a Ball State alumni, played football there, and the whole football staff was going to visit Ball State. So we drove down together, and while I was there, they were meeting with football coaches. I was meeting with the strength staff, and who was Ben Armour and Zane Fakes. And Zane was the GA. And while I was there, he got a new job. And so like, it was like my meetings with them were kind of like cut short because like Zane was on the phone the whole time. Ben had to do some things. And so it was a crazy happenstance. And then like a week later, after like we talked and stuff like that, I got a call saying if I was interested to go from Defiance to go GA at Ball State. And went to Ball State, interviewed, got the job, and I GA'd there for a little over 2 years. And that was really important for me because like I was never at a place before where like I saw what college football was like year round. It was usually just like a winter at Defiance, right, or the 2 summers at South Carolina and Alabama, seeing camp and stuff like that. But it was important for me to see like a full year of college football, what the off season looks like, what a spring ball looks like, I knew what the summers should kind of mirror, and then what a season looks like. So got to experience that for 2 years. Had some other job interview offers while I was out there, but I wanted to stay so I can see that full year round. Like I said, I didn't want to keep hopping around. I needed to see like that full year-long experience. You know what I mean? That calendar experience and that off. And then crazy thing was my GA was coming to a close. Like I said, I come from Staten Island, so it's very typical, very Italian style, small knit family, and some family issues popped up, and my GA was coming to a close. So I was looking for other jobs and happened to get a job closer to home, and figured that would be like my best decision for me. You know what I mean? For like me personally, and maybe career-wise, maybe not, but so took over for like it was a private sector job technically, you know what I mean? Working with so I did some private training, and they're very small, a very small gym. I mean, but they have lots of like the high tech equipment. They had a rehab and a chiro practice right next door, so a lot of one-on-one training with a lot of MMA fighters and boxers and like professional tennis players, so stuff like that. Nice. But I was more. They also had a contract with the high school, and we ran the gym there. So I was after doing like an orientation, I went to the gym. They just built a gym, had that little connection, and loved it. Like from day one, I started working with the football teams and the basketball teams there, and then even some general pop kids. You know what I mean? So making the calendar or like scheduling was a little bit difficult. You know what I mean? Because like it's not like college where the weight rooms are open all day. You know what I mean? There's school, there's PE classes. I wasn't a PE teacher, and so just very weird. You know what I mean? So more of like helping hands with the general pop, and then with the teams, you know what I mean, trying to schedule some alone time with them, just because I think that's the best environment for them to really learn. And I really crushed it. You know what I mean? I thought first 6 weeks was awesome. You know what I mean? Teaching with the kids. The kids were awesome. Great facility. And then COVID hit.
Oh,
right. And then I living in New York. COVID was kind of crazy.
Yeah.
So COVID hit. I got laid off. And actually for a year, you weren't allowed to have gyms open in New York. So I was kind of laid off almost a year, and ended up having to get a manual labor job building in-ground pools and working with one of my friends, family members, and great experience. I mean, I learned a lot of like life skills, I'd say. You know what I mean? Now I'm able to a lot more handy as before as I wasn't. You mean, so good life skills, good trade to know, you know what I mean? Made some real good relationships and some good connections. And then schools reopened. I started going back and forth in and out because schools were opening and closing, you know what I mean? And then there was a football coach change in the school and just chaos. And then I was reached out by another high school in Staten Island where I went to school, Monsignor Farrell, and they were in the process of building a weight room, brand new weight room, and they were talking to one of their alumni who was a strength coach, Kenny White at Providence, and they were like, "You need to get a strength coach. You can have just a weight room monitor and stuff like that." So ended up interviewing here, and was really got hired, and then really became a lot involved in the process of building and ordering a weight room. You know what I mean? So like from the ground up, I got to design everything from the floor, from the equipment, with pretty much not a strict budget at all. So it was pretty cool. So that got into process in August, and we're about to finish up right now and have a pretty cool gym. We're going to have 14 racks from power lift. We're going to have some glute hams and hypers. We're going to have some gym-aware, VBT training tools. I mean, a great thing that they were able to work with me with was making one of the walls reinforced so we can throw some medicine balls against. And but like I said, it's coming to a close. But that project started in August, and we haven't had a gym at this high school for pretty much the entire school year.
Right.
So it's been a little bit difficult to process, like and it's not the best weather up here in New York too. You know what I mean? We don't have an indoor. Right. We're not a Division I strength program that has an indoor facility. So or Texas high school. So we've actually in the summertime we did stuff out on the field with some of the old weight room equipment and some power speed stuff. And then when we transitioned into the colder months, we moved some equipment and we've been lifting in the hallway of the school after school every day since school started in September. So and we had to do it with the masks on to start. Now there's the no mask, which has been good for the kids, but it's been a tough environment for them to adjust and really introduce what a true year-round strength and conditioning program should look like. But hopefully when we cut the ribbon and the weight room's unveiled, everything turns around and we're able to get really started on, you know what I mean? So starting a little bit behind the 8 ball, but hopefully we can catch up a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And that's a hell of a story right there. Obviously it's been obviously a bit of a roller coaster, right? You know, that's probably the case for most people involved in strength and conditioning. Everybody's kind of got their own roller coaster story, right? But I do want to go back to one thing you mentioned, and then we'll kind of get into a little bit more of what you're doing there at Monsignor. You know, at one point you decided, you know, instead of, you know, taking on some other jobs while you're at Ball State, you said, I want to stick around here because I want to see what strength and conditioning looks like from a year-round perspective. And, you know, from the perspective, obviously you being, you know, a loyal guy and somebody who wants to be committed to a particular program or a particular goal, decided to stick around. And then you mentioned a little bit like, was that the best for your career or was it not? I would say, like, from an outsider's perspective, I think you made the right decision, right? But like, what are your thoughts that you have on the concept of, you know, some younger strength and conditioning coaches not bouncing around so much, but staying committed to one thing at a time? And then what are your thoughts on just kind of like how that's impacted your career and your ability to kind of stay within one scope of practice one scope of a university prior to moving on?
Yeah, like I said, it was a very important decision for me, and I made the right decision by staying around for at least a full year. It ended up being 2 years, but because I didn't play Division I football, and I said that Division III level, it was a little bit different. But so I only saw summers, you know what I mean, and learning about it, and what you learn in school, it really isn't practical, and that is what you learn in real life. You know what I mean? Like, at least in the school that I went to, not to say I had a great time. I mean, I learned a bunch of things, had some real good professors who I actually still have some contact with, but there wasn't a football program there, you know what I mean? And their weight room was extremely small and low budget. And so for me to see what it looks like was really important for me, just to gauge like what I should mirror. Not to say I'm going to do the same exact thing, because everybody's their own person and should have their own philosophies and everything like that. But for me, just know like what the athletes in the college setting had to go through if I wanted to stay in that world. Like, how is their schedule like? How are they going to think mentally throughout the year? You know what I mean? Like, because being a college athlete isn't the easiest thing in the world. No. You know, it's a tough schedule, and I have a younger brother that played Division I football, so I was able to share the experience with him and what the expectations should be. But you also really get to build relationships. You know what I mean? Like that's what staying was helpful for. You know what I mean? Like, I was with the sport coach, and even with the athletes and the kids, was able to like really build relationships, not just being a coach and an athlete, but being, some people want to say like a friend, but like being somebody that they can trust and talk to. You know what I mean? Some person that, because you got to build that trust. You know what I mean? Like, if the athletes don't trust you, they're never going to respect you, and they're never going to listen to you, and then their training will affect that. You know what I mean? So you got to be hard on them, but they got to be able to trust you too. You know what I mean? Like I said, I got a really good quote that I was told, and I really bring it with me every single day I show up to work, and it's that the athletes don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. You know what I mean? So I try to bring that message to the kids every single day and show that I really care about them. You know what I mean? Like, in the college setting, it was, how you doing in class? You know what I mean? Like, how are you mentally? How are you handling training? You know what I mean? Some kids aren't getting a lot of playing time, so it's tough for them. You know what I mean? Like, not every single kid on a college football program is a meathead and loves working out. You know what I mean? Most of them just like playing football. So, like, trying to explain to them things that are important and why we're doing everything. The why is really important. And now in the high school setting, it's more really like educational, and also maybe like bringing my little college experience that I had to help them get into college if that's what they want to do, and tell them what the expectations are, and a little bit in the recruiting process and stuff like that. But also in the high school setting, like, educational is huge, just because these kids have never had a strength coach before, never really had a true high school weight room setting. You know what I mean? They've always just worked out at public gyms, you know what I mean, or personal trainers. And so this is a whole new experience for them, especially a lot of these kids grew up and are graduating to high school through 2 years of COVID. So it's pretty challenging. And social media is a great thing. You know what I mean? I know strength coaches love to argue on social media all the time with each other. You know what I mean? Bashing each other, but giving each other praise and stuff like that. But a lot of these kids, like, they see that now they have all these exercise and training things accessible to them through TikTok and Instagram. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's not the best information for themselves as high school athletes, and how to develop and how to learn. You know what I mean? Mostly just learning through like fitness models or and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Through TikTok. And in my opinion, I don't think that's what a high school athlete needs. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, you need to give them a base. You got to give them the tools to be able to move well. You know what I mean? And I think part of like my job, even though it's not in my description, is that even if these kids aren't going to play college sports, if they're going to college, you know what I mean, they're just gonna, you know what I mean, continually to work out. Is one, I want to be able to teach them how to exercise correctly, because that's a life skill that they're going to be able to use the rest of their life, hopefully staying injury pretty free, versus just doing stuff by themselves, not knowing how to back squat correctly, or deadlift correctly, or clean correctly, or bench any sort of movements, and we'll be able to help them throughout their life, versus maybe the Pythagorean theorem, A squared plus B squared equals C squared, where you're really not probably going to use that. You know what I mean? Even though you got to learn it in school, but it's that's well, I'd take pride in like that being part of my job is preparing them. You mean giving them good lessons so if they go to college, right, they can stay healthy, they can continue to stay physically fit. You know what I mean? Know how to work out, which is great for mental aspect going into college. You know what I mean? That's tough for a freshman. I know it was for me, and also hopefully keeping off that freshman 15 that a lot of guys gain when they're freshmen.
Yeah, for sure. I think you bring up a really good point. It's really underrated. I think the amount of value that you can bring by just even, like you said, some of those kids are like, a lot of those kids probably won't go on to play college or whatever the case may be, but you're going to give them an opportunity to understand how to approach their physical preparation for the rest of their life. And, you know, obviously you're going to get some guy, like obviously you're a really good dude and you're going to get some guys who just believe in what you have to say, whether they understand it or not. And obviously by them believing in it, they're going to start to, you know, buy in a little bit more. And then by the time they leave, they're going to think, well, you know what, my coach in high school, like he really outlined for me what my training should look like when I step into the gym. So that they have a little bit of, even at the very least, they have a little bit of a filter when it comes to trying to like decipher the things that they see on TikTok, on Instagram, like you said, all those videos. And I mean, and we were talking the other day, it's like, you know, you get all these like stories and these questions from these kids, and the questions that you get at the high school level have got to be nuts. I mean, obviously we know at the college level, like they're nuts too. Like, I mean, and I don't even know if you could blame the kids anymore. I mean, it's like the things you see on Instagram, the things you see on TikTok, the things that even some like high level and like somewhat like respectable or supposed to be respectable Instagram accounts, you know, put out there as far as information goes, you're looking at it like, well, if I'm a young kid who has no context whatsoever, of course, I'm going to think that that's cool. I'm going to think it's valuable. I'm going to think that I need to do it. I'm going to think more is better, like all the, you know, stigmas that come with, you know, the challenges we face. But, I just want to point that out. Like, I think that is a very underrated value that you can provide for those kids and give them the opportunity to kind of, you know, have somewhat of a filter, because that's the type of impact that's going to have long-term value. Like we were talking about the other day, at some point, these kids aren't going to be athletes anymore and no one's going to really care like about guiding them, right? Like the collegiate athlete, the 17 to 18-year-old stud who's at a Division I school, there's no scarcity of information being provided to them, right? The sports scientists, the strength and conditioning coaches, the sport coaches, the sports psychologists, the, you know, the nutrition staff, whatever. Everybody wants to get their claws in there, right? And give them information and guide them and impart their wisdom and all that stuff. That's great. And then once you're not an athlete anymore, no one really cares. And you're just looking for someone to talk to, right? That, I think that value is even more long-term than we can imagine.
Like I told you yesterday, I had a kid ask me, you know, I try to make my ways around, like, well, since we don't have a weight room, there's no really training in school right now, you know what I mean? And so sometimes we don't have we're going to have a great facility when it's done, but like it's kind of a smaller school. So make my way with time to lunchroom, you know what I mean? Try to make, help the kids make better choices, you know what I mean, what they're eating, or just educate them that way. But also for them to ask me questions, even, and learn a lot of the kids in the school. And I had a kid ask me a question of, is creatine going to make my hair fall out? You know what I mean? Like they're talking about taking creatine, like, because a lot of the things you see a lot of the guys on TikTok now are talking about steroids is a huge thing. And they're talking about like cycling off creatine or BCAAs, like they're taking anabolic performance enhancers. And I'm like, no, guys, that's not it. You know what I mean? I try to like tell them, I was like, guys, maybe like instead of watching TikTok for like 5-10 minutes, just look up the topic that you want to learn about and just read about it. You know what I mean? Because then you'll be able to make your own decisions, and somebody's not telling you what it is, and you just believe in them because it was on the internet.
Right, exactly. And I do wonder if that's more of like a product of our society and just kind of like the culture that we have here in America, as opposed to just like the saturation of the strength and conditioning industry. And I guess to clarify what I mean by that is like, right, like all the time, like we always had those athletes, or even just the people in general, who just like, more is more, right? More is better. I just need to go out there. I just need to go hard. I need to do whatever. I just always need to be doing something, right? And then obviously, you know, that sort of equates to more noise over time than actual signal to the body. And we know how kind of that goes. But then, you know, in your mind, you're thinking, well, it's like, I don't know. I mean, like everybody's been told, like, you know, I deal with this all the time. Like, I want to go harder. Like, I want to do more. Right. And it's like, well, let's be honest. Like, if that kid can walk away with some sort of understanding that, like, all right, if I want to be big, like everyone's like, I just want to be bigger, stronger. I want to be jacked. Right. Like, it's just like the general terms, right? Like everyone's like, you know, like at some point it's like, let's be honest. Like after you're done being an athlete, it's like, yeah, you want to look good with your shirt off. Right. You want to feel good about yourself. You want to look like you lift weights. Like, I get it. No doubt. Right. And it's like, all right, so like you want to be pretty big. Whatever happened to just squatting, benching, and deadlifting and hitting some accessory work, right? Like you'd be okay. You'd probably be okay, right? But it's like I do a lot of people like I need more. Like I need more exercise. I want to do more. You know what I mean? It's like okay, how much weight did you have? Like how much effort and intent did you put towards your main exercise today? Which was I don't know, say you're pulling from the floor or something like that, right? And be like, yeah, like I don't know, I was pulling, like 135 or something like that, right? And it's like.
Yeah.
Okay, so like what are we talking about here? Like you could be in the gym for a half an hour and get stronger if you're pulling. And like no offense to anybody who's like, you know what I mean? Like if that's relatively what you need in order to like tax you and obviously get you to a point where you're getting a stimulus, maybe that's your 80% or whatever it is, then fine. But if it's like if you're just like, sitting down and standing up with like, I don't know, something at an RPE of like 4 or 5, it's like, well, what do we do? Like you could do a zillion exercises if you want. It's like you said, like the creatine and the protein powder, you're chasing the 2%. It's like trying to get jacked and lean, just, using those supplements, right? It's like you're chasing the 2%. Like, you're not going to have that much of an effect. You do as many accessory exercises as you want. You're not, you know what I mean? It's like, I think if you get to the point where like, American can understand, it's like, hey, you attack these main movements with some vigor. You're probably not even going to want to do your accessory work and you probably won't even need to, you really get after those main movements, but sorry, not to go off on a tangent,
that's so true, Tone, because like I work out with kids in here and we work out for 45 minutes to an hour in a hallway and we do a main movement and then we do 2 to 3 accessory exercises and we usually try to do some sort of running and some power speed and some mechanic stuff beforehand if the field's available, if the weather's nice, or if I have the basketball gym available. And then we get our main movement in and a little 20 minutes of accessory work. But then like I hear the kids telling me that after they're working out, they're going to the public gym and doing and then continue doing lower body exercise. Or instead of going to public gym, they're going to a personal trainer who isn't talking to me. I'm not talking to them. They have no idea what we're doing. And after we did 80% of hand cleans, you know what I mean? They're going back there and then doing max effort back squats, you know what I mean? Just to put it on social media, no matter how bad it looks. And then after that, they're going to a personal training position coach that they pay to do ladder drills work. And they're end up working out 4 to 5 hours in a day. And then they wonder why they can't gain weight or they're not getting stronger. And I tell the kids all the time, you can't out train bad recovery. It's impossible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? After that. Why do all guys in the NFL like they work out 1 to 2 hours or any major professional sport? They work out or they train for 1 to 2 hours a day. Maybe 3 if in that other hour, that extra hour is probably more of like recovery work in and of itself if you still want to consider it training. And then they play video games.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they don't want to stress their bodies.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've got to recover for the next day to be able to get that 1% better.
No doubt. And I think, that's, like I said, I don't know like what that's a product of. And I think like I was just as guilty of that when I first started lifting weights when I was a kid in high school. You know what I mean? It's like, you think you got to do more, right? It's like more is better than just constantly be like putting myself and, every once in a while it's good to scratch that itch or whatever. But I think if you can impart some ways that's kind of the way I see like the way I approach like the concepts of physical preparation, what I do in my daily opportunities now is like, I just want to educate someone to like guide them in a certain direction. You know what I mean? That like, just because you're trying to like smash yourself in the gym with like a bunch of randomness, right? It isn't really going to get you to where you want to go. And then it's not to say that like, there isn't a time where you you need to push the limits sometimes, right? Like you need to overload at some point, right? There needs to be some exposure to that. I get, you know what I mean? It's just, I think there's different ways to look at it. But what I do, I want to go back to what you mentioned before, because I do want to get into that as part of this podcast. And I think it would be super important is obviously at Monsignor High School, you guys are going through a weight room change. Like you said, you're getting a newly renovated weight room. It's going to be awesome. But obviously in the meantime, you haven't had a weight room to train out of, right? So you're talking about training out of the hallway, maybe utilizing some hills that you have exposure to on the back end of the school, some of the field access, and obviously live in New England, it's like the region itself is not necessarily the best for weather when it comes to the winter. So what I do think would be valuable is if you could take us through kind of like a top-down approach from maybe like the beginning of your training session to the end, maybe like a weekly view, that kind of thing, for someone else who's in a similar situation with very, very minimal resources, to show how you can still touch on all of those physical qualities of obviously speed, power, stamina, strength, suppleness, like all of the things that you need to obviously provide these athletes with some exposure with very minimal equipment. So how have you gotten creative and approached this situation?
Yeah, so I'll start off with something that we introduced about 2 months ago with the football program here is trying to get some little bit of nutritional education in there and helping the kids understand that. And we don't have the budget for the school, but I offered it for the football program, and pretty much I'd say 80% of the kids were brought in, and we called it the Big Eaters Club here. Now we're bringing it to basketball, and every kid 1 month hands in $20, and with that they're able to get, if they work out 3 times a week, 4 weeks in a month, 12 workouts, they're able to get a protein shake, a Premier protein shake, and a variety of snacks. You know what I mean? The snack is a Cliff Bar, a chocolate chip cookie, you know what I mean, a granola bar, any sort of thing that we can get some protein in them and some carbs, and educate them on how that the carb and protein ratio is what it's supposed to be. You know what I mean? You just, because a lot of the kids buy a protein powder, they ask me that, and there's 0 carbs in it, and they're drinking that after their workouts. And I try to explain to them. I was like, you need the carbohydrates to get to create the muscle. You know what I mean? It's not just the protein. Like, protein is great, but all these kids are on the fad of, oh, carbs are bad for you. Carbs are bad for you. That's not the case.
Right.
I mean, carbs are very important for athletes. Very important. I mean, especially for high school athletes, in my opinion. Because, and the protein as well, because a lot of problems we have here, kids are like, oh, I can't gain weight. I have fast metabolism. I eat a lot. I have fast metabolism. You know what I mean? And they usually end up not eating a lot. You know what I mean? Like, then we usually break it down for them, and they're like, well, I don't eat breakfast. I have lunch in school at 10 o'clock, and then we have practice, and then I eat when I go home. So they're eating one real meal a day. You know what I mean? If their lunch was a salami sandwich on bread with a bag of chips, you know what I mean? That's not really a meal. You know what I mean? You're not getting any really nutritional dense calories from there. So trying to educate them and the parents with that. So the Big Eaters Club has been a huge success. You know what I mean? We're starting up with the basketball program right now. And so a little weekly of our football is, we have the equipment that I have is 10 old rusty barbells and some plates. So we have enough plates and weight to give each kid 205 at the bar. You know what I mean? So when we started, you know what I mean? Like I said, these kids had never had a strength coach before, never really had a true regimented workout program before. So we started with a body weight warm up every day, and we start with the sprint progression. You know what I mean? And some plyos. So I think about that as sprints, we go short to long, and plyos we go extensive to intensive. So we go long to short. So it's like I go a little bit of the opposite with that. So you know what I mean? We do a little bit of a rudiment jump series every single day.
Nice.
If we have the basketball court or the football field, and then we started with push-up starts, segmented push-up starts, and usually 5 to 10 yards. And then I educate the kids and tell them, guys, the only way we're going to get faster is if you run fast, because they're like, oh, coach, are we doing cardio today? They consider sprinting cardio. So guys, we're going to sprint 10 yards. You're going to walk it back. We're going to wait 1 minute, and then we're going to sprint again as hard as you can. And then we go from segmented push-up starts to just a regular push-up start. You mean trying to let the athlete really figure out their movement patterns. You know what I mean? Like just self-regulate themselves. Like, you know what I mean? I don't try to coach too much. You know what I mean? I'm not a big, huge yelling out coaching cues while they're sprinting, because if they're trying to think about while they're sprinting, they're not sprinting. You know what I mean? So I kind of let them fly, and then from there went into some half kneeling starts, into some half kneeling rolling starts, and those have probably been the best start that we've had, is the half kneeling rolling start and the push-up start. So we usually try to do that every day before our workout. We try to sprint at least twice a week, 3 times a week with the football guys, and then we go into the lifts. So my main thing was, we got about 30 minutes, is we taught them a barbell complex on day 1. You know what I mean? Empty barbells. I don't have PVC pipes. I have no storage in this building either. So it's the kids have to, and I feel bad. You know what I mean? Like in the college setting, everything was set up for the kids. They just showed up, worked out, and that was it. But these kids every day have to go into a storage closet, grab out the barbells, carry all the weights to their station. You know what I mean? So it's a process for them. You know what I mean? So it's not the most friendly atmosphere, I'd say, for an enthusiastic atmosphere for them. But with that is teaching a barbell complex, teaching them how to do a zombie front squat, you know what I mean? An RDL and a bent over row. That's where we started at.
Yeah.
You know, lots of kids struggle with the hinge movement in high school.
No
you know,
doubt.
I mean, it's a huge problem with there. And then from there, we did some front rack split squats. You know what I mean? We started with the bar, we worked eccentrics, and then from there we did just accessory movements with the plates. You know what I mean? Because I have to program if a kid's going to use 45-pound plates, we can't do an accessory movement with 45-pound plates. They need to use the 25s or 10s. So I have to be very cognizant of what accessory movements we're doing. If it's a body weight movement, if we're going to do like an upper body accessory movement, maybe we're going to use the 10-pound plates instead of 25. And then with that, our main pressing movements have been a floor press because we lift on the floor. We don't have benches. Right. And weighted eccentric push-ups. And that's been a huge asset for us, I think, with the kids, is teaching them how to do a push-up. And really, I've been after they had the body weight, they wanted to add more weight, and that's what all these kids want. And so then we add 25 or 10-pound plate on their back for the eccentric portion only, and then their partner takes the weight off, and they do a push-up up. Yeah. So that's kind of what it looks like. And then from there, after we mastered the complex, we started teaching some sort of clean progression, because I think it's important. I'm not against the Olympic lifts whatsoever, and I think it teaches really good coordination for the kids. You know what I mean? Not every single kid here is like, they don't really make cuts. So you can get a kid that never played a sport before. You know what I mean? It teaches really good rhythm and coordination. I mean, it's a total body movement, and we only have 205. So we do some muscle cleans. You know what I mean? Some cleans with a rerun. We try not to shift our feet so much because of how slippery the floor is, you know what I mean? So, and it's not it's tile, you know what I mean? It's not the best surface to be doing weighted ballistic movements with. But so we taught them that, because I thought that was going to be the best bang for the buck that we can get. And I'm comfortable teaching that progression as well. And then from the split squat, we actually have to build a squat rack. So we have two kids hold the bar up on each side, and then the kids get underneath, make sure they're comfortable, and then they were able to go from there. And those are our pretty main movements. You know what I mean? We clean, we do some sort of clean variation. We don't front squat, you know what I mean? Because some of the kids, it's not enough load for them, and some of them it is. But so we do single leg movements, either with a front rack split squat or a front rack reverse lunge. And then with the reverse lunge, since the floor is slippery as well, we usually have them have a plate on the back as a guide template. You know what I mean? Tell the kids they're allowed to take their shoes off. You know what I mean? If they don't have the correct lifting types of shoes, you know what I mean? It's not like college where they get lifting shoes. You know what I mean? So like kids lifting in Air Force Ones aren't the best things in the world. So I tell those kids they can take their shoes off. Right. And then on the other day we do, and we've also introduced and we lifted a hallway, and the ceiling's 9 feet, so we can't lift anything overhead. So we've introduced in the past 3 weeks, we've introduced the Z press, where you're sitting down with wide feet doing an overhead press like that. And that's been really, the kids really like that, because they're like, oh, like I can overhead press 135 in the public gym. You know what I mean? I'm like, well, no, you can't. you can't do this with 135. I'm telling you that right now. Yeah. You know what I mean? So and that's been a really good bang for our buck exercise as well. And the kids like it as well, because it's challenging. All the kids want to be challenged. Sure. And as long as they understand the reason why. And then with basketball, I take a little bit of a different approach, because I train all 3 levels at once. With football, it's a little bit more split up between JV and varsity. Basketball, it's pretty much a freshman, sophomore, freshman, JV, and varsity together. So it's all 4 years of high school in one. So, and this is, now we're just going into the off season, but we have some more equipment. We have 2 trap bars. We have 2 dumbbell benches. We have like 6 old dumbbells. You know what I mean? So we have all this equipment. So with the basketball approach, we try to do a little bit more of like a station rotation approach. You know what I mean? Teaching them how to do like a trap bar, you know what I mean? Because we can, while other kids are doing some prone rows on the dumbbell bench. You know what I mean? And right now in the off season, we're doing like a 1x20 right now. So this will be the second week. of 1x20, and then hopefully they can transition and be ready to go into a more regimented type of style, total body 3-day split in the new weight room coming up after spring break. But with the basketball kids, while I'm not a huge proponent of, like, we still sprint with the basketball guys, but we don't do as much sprint mechanic work, you know what I mean, like mock drills and stuff like that. I mean, some basketball players are just long and lanky, you know what I mean? So, and I don't think we do some, you know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. I think it's a great warm-up tool, you know what I mean? But just for the amount of time that we have, and I only have those guys 2 days a week, so we pretty much do a little bit more just push-up starts with them, and we do a lot more extensive plyos with them. You know what I mean?
Sense. Yeah.
They do a lot more extensive plyos. You know what I mean? Because all of them when I got here, every kid they tell me they have tendonitis in their knee.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I tell them all the time, you don't have tendonitis in your knee. You're 13 years old. You don't have arthritis. My knees are like a 4-year-old man. Well, that's a problem. You know what I mean? And so as I do with football as well, but we do a lot of ISOs. I mean, we do a lot of bodyweight ISOs, and we introduce that in our warm up. Our warm up has we move, and then we do some ISOs before we lift for that little effect that we get. You know what I mean? Neurological effect. And then we work from a bodyweight split squat. You know what I mean? We try to go from a vertical shin angle to a little bit more of a 45, and then we do a little bit of a heel raise. You know what I mean? And then we just build on time. You know what I mean? And then some kids during the lift will add some sort of load. You know what I mean? And then we bring the time back down, keep it as simple as possible for them. So we don't have TVs. I have a stopwatch and a whistle. That's all I have.
Yeah, that's it.
So I like to kind of just keep it down to the basics. I mean, and it's not rocket science getting a high school athlete stronger. You know what I mean?
Right.
Kids can go to the gym by themselves and probably PR on a bench, if they do it correctly, PR on a bench or squat 4 weeks in a row. You know what I mean? Like they've got all the fucking training tools that they have that they want, and all that stimulus ready to be absorbed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, especially the kids that are like hitting puberty, like or have already hit puberty and are starting to like grow that facial hair. Right. It's crazy. You see a kid like grow 6 inches in 4 months. You know what I mean? And then they got to learn movements all over again. You're like, Coach, why aren't I as strong as I was 6 months ago? Well, you grew 6 inches. So when you did a dumbbell goblet squat, like think about the distance. You're doing a lot more work now than you did before. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and your brain's got to organize a totally different set of leverages now. It is a totally different coordination set there. Yeah,
exactly. So, and that's really been it. I would like to work with a lot more sports here. You know what I mean? But like everything here is all like a lot of multi-sport kids, and that's going to be a huge battle for me because the PE program is not like structured enough for them to train during their school day.
Yeah,
which is I would like to get to that point. I've talked to a couple of other high school strength coaches around the country, reached out to them. They've been great, but especially in New York, I don't know any other high school really that has a strength coach. Unless it's like a really private school, like it's usually a sport coach that does it, or the gym teacher. You know what I mean? It's more like a weight room monitoring thing, and you see on Twitter people bashing high school coaches on the whiteboard workouts and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and I think people are trying to do their best. You know what I mean? And the more information we're able to get out there and educate people, because everybody wants to be better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, not everybody's ignorant. You know what I mean? So everybody wants to be better. Not everybody had the experience me and you had. You know what I mean? Like we got to work with some good strength coaches all around the country. You know what I mean? Like, and be able to get exposed to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, kids are like, kids tell me sometimes, like, oh, what do the kids like do at Alabama? I'm like, what can I do to get there? I was like, I try to be honest with them. I was like, I'm sorry, they're born different.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's what they do.
Their name's not Mario, and he's 5'9", and he weighs 180 pounds. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so like
exactly.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
But
Mario.
you know what I mean? Like that's what, you know what I mean? And you get some kids in here, like real small kids. You know what I mean? So, and there's no, like I see on Twitter and stuff like that, or more in the South, Midwest. You know what I mean? That like there's middle schools with strength and conditioning programs. Like,
that's interesting.
there's nothing like that up on me because I grew up here, and like I said, the only trainers that you had, like the only type of supervision that you had was either a football coach or like if your parents were able to send you to a personal trainer. But like then, like what do your parents know about training? You know what I mean?
Right,
They just
right.
like, oh, this guy, people say this guy's good. You know what I mean? They have no idea like what he's doing. You know what I mean? Oh, it was a really hard workout. Did you get an adaptation from it, or did you just sweat for fucking 45 minutes?
Yeah, I don't know. He made my kid feel fatigued, so he must be good. Yeah, it must be worth my money that I'm doling out $100 an hour for this personal trainer. Yeah, so I try to tell that kids all the time, and that's kind of, and the parents. I was like, guys, I work at school because it's a battle that I fight here. You know what I mean? Like, I can't come to workouts because I got like my personal trainer, and I try to explain to parents. I was like, I'm getting paid by the school, no matter if your son works out with me or not. Right. I said, I want him to work out with me. I said, I have his best interests for me. I think so. I said, this other guy that he wants you to work out with him because he's paying you, you're paying him money like that. Like his living depends on you going to him. So like, he's going to try to sell it because like, and all for him on the same side, everybody's got to make a living. You know what I mean? I was in the private sector too. Like I did private training as well. I run a 7th and 8th grade weightlifting clinic now. You know what I mean? And people, and I get paid for it. You know what I mean? So like I totally get it, but I said just try to inform them and educate them so they can make the best decisions for their kids. You know what I mean? Yeah. So they like asking questions is a really good thing. You know what I mean? Like I'm a big question. Anybody ask me, any of the kids ask me, or any of the coaches, you know what I mean? Like I have a why for everything that I do. It may not be right. You may not believe in the same reasoning I have on it, but I have a why. Like it's based off something that I've read in a book and that I've seen work before. I said, you know what I mean? Like, or somebody that I trust and thinking, and I've made mistakes. You know what I mean? I'm not the best strength coach in the country by any means. You know what I mean? Yeah. Well, I do think it is a testament though, like everything you just outlined. And that was why I wanted you to take us through that, because obviously you're dealing with a very minimal situation, right? As far kind of like minimalist as far as what you have available to you, your resources, obviously what you're dealing with. You're trying to obviously take on a new role. You're trying to develop some leadership, foundation within, the players that you're working with, and obviously the administration that you're working for. On top of that, you guys are going through a new weight room renovation. You're trying to handle the budget for that. You're trying to obviously instill new educational pieces for these young athletes. And obviously at the same time, you're trying to train them. You're trying to give them some sensible training in an environment where, like you said, it's not necessarily like the hallway where the ceiling is 9 feet and the floor is tile and slippery. And you've got like a field, you know what I mean? So what I really do think is valuable there, and why I wanted you to take us through how you approach those situations is a lot of cases. I'm not saying every situation is going to be like that, especially with like the way strength and conditioning, the direction it's moving. And there's definitely going to be more resource for a lot of people, but there are a lot of people, a lot of strength coaches who deal with a very, like with a situation, I don't want to say similar to yours, but similar in the sense that there's just minimal situation that they have, right? They have to be creative in some way, shape or form. So I think that it's a testament to the work that you've done to try to get yourself in a position where you're knowledgeable and you have a ton of bandwidth within the systems that you obviously believe in and obviously have studied, right? To be able to still execute and give them exposure to the qualities you think are important, even regardless of what you have available to you. You know what I mean? I think there's like this misconception, like, oh, I need more of this. I need this. I need like, these tools. It's like, dude, like you gotta give me a barbell, some weights, and like a floor. You know what I mean? Give me like a little bit of space, right? You got a little bit of field, you got a hill. You know what I mean? You can get a lot of work done, So I think, I think that there's another piece of like underrated value that you're bringing there. Is like, all right, look at, what is like the criteria of whether someone's a good strength coach or not, or a good coach, or just a good, a good informant or a good educator is, am I teaching somebody the things that I know, and can I teach it to them regardless of what their current situation is or my current situation, right? And I think that, of course, there's some great strength coaches out there doing great things with a ton of resources, no doubt. Like obviously, like, you got these guys working at some very high levels, and especially the sports science aspect. There's definitely some things that they have that are super important that are allowing them to obviously push the boundaries, but most people aren't going to have those things, right? And obviously you're dealing with a situation right now. It's like you don't, but you're still able to exemplify the intelligence that you have and the education that you put forth, because you're able to be creative and still provide these guys with a great experience, these young kids, regardless of what their current situation holds. So I appreciate you, letting us know, how you approach those things.
and I appreciate these kids. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? And it numbers vary. You know what I mean? It's a new year, but it's like I said, like keeping it simple. You know what I mean? Like it's the kiss man. I keep it simple, stupid. You know what I mean? Like I don't try to overcomplicate the things with these kids. You know what I mean? A lot of self-learning by themselves. You know what I mean? Like I try to tell them like if you don't feel if I tell you to feel it if we're doing an RDL and you don't feel it in the hamstrings, like we gotta fix that. You know what I mean? Like that's my coaching cue. You doing an RDL? Do you feel it in your hamstrings pretty much, or your toes not coming off the floor? And if your low back looks pretty good, that's it for me. You know what I mean? Like and it's muscle memory. You know what I mean? Like takes 1,000 repetitions to learn something, so it's not gonna look pretty. You know what I mean? Like every kid isn't gonna look great. You know what I mean? Like and I want every kid to look great. You know what I mean? Like, but it's in my experience is that like you're gonna have some outliers. You know what I mean? Like that's like and I feel that as like a strength coach sometimes. Like, am I doing the best thing? Because you see great, like you said, there's some great strength coaches out there. You go on social media, they put out great content and stuff like that from the high school level, middle school, all the way up to the professional level and Power 5. And you question yourself, am I doing a good enough job? You know what I mean? Like, but then I've also been in some of those places, and I see that not every kid is doing every single exercise correctly. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like
a lot of them aren't.
No matter how many strength coaches that they have, you know what I mean? If they have 10 strength coaches in a lifting session, you know what I mean? Like maybe not everybody's clean form looks correctly, but hopefully they're staying safe. You know what I mean? Like I said, I tell the kids all the time. You know what I mean? I tell them all the time. I'm like, I'm the strength coach, right? I'm your performance coach. Nobody has ever won a football game or a basketball game with a barbell or dumbbells on their back. I said, sport is always the most important thing. I said, we don't train to get hurt. I said, we don't want to get hurt during our training session, so we can stay healthy during the season. I said, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, I think that's our job. Hopefully, we can make them into better athletes. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I'm not gonna I can't teach them how to shoot a basketball. I mean, that's not my job. That's not my job.
Right.
You know what
exactly. I mean? Yeah.
Especially like.
No, you go.
Especially at a place like this where I'm working with all the sports. You know what I mean? Like I can only dive into so much. You know what I mean? Like like you know what I mean? Like, and I try to do some like teaching like kids asking questions like when their sport coaches at practice and stuff like that. If they're going through warm ups, they're going like I feel they might glute a little bit, or I don't feel like I'm getting warm enough, and to teach them some little movements that they can do to prepare themselves so they feel good for practice. Like just like the kids, like you see kids in pregame warm up, and no matter what sport it is, if you feel good, you look good, you're usually gonna play good. You know what I mean? Like it's not rocket science to me, especially at the high school level. You know what I mean? Like get the kids feeling good, and if they're confident in themselves and they've been prepared for that moment mentally and physically, then I think you as the coach have done your job. You know what I mean? But you still always got to get better. I mean, I tell the kids, and it happens to me, like no such thing as staying the same. Every day you can either get better or you can get worse. So the goal is always to try to get a little bit 1% better every single day.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I appreciate those sentiments. And I know I want to let you, we're coming up on an hour now. So I do want to have, give you an opportunity to obviously give some educational resources to some of the listeners as well. Obviously you're a very well-read guy. So and then I'll let you get back to your job, because I'm sure that the high school kids are, are in need of their coach back, but I do appreciate this time. But yeah, if you want to just kind of outline, if it's just like a couple books or podcasts or just people. Oh yeah.
Sorry about that, Tom.
No, you're good. So just quickly, if you want to just kind of outline like a couple podcasts or books or references or any resources that you find to be have been valuable, that are valuable, that you think might help some of the listeners, whatever, just outline those now, and then we'll let you get back to work. But appreciate it.
No problem. Yeah, like I said, I'm a big I like to read a little bit. You know what I mean? I'm not the I do struggle to read. You know what I mean? But I love Buddy Morris, you know what I mean, from the Arizona Cardinals, you know what I mean? and his kind of tree that he has, which includes James Smith. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So anything written by James Smith, I'm gonna read. You know what I mean? Charlie Francis's 2 books. You mean the Speech Trap, and I have his other one right here. I forget the name off the top of my head.
The manual.
The manual, the Charlie Francis, and that's been really great for me with the high school kids because he talks about training kids. You know what I mean? Like with my middle school kids, the 7th, 8th grade clinic I run, we do broad jumps into a sprint. Like we usually do some sort of movement and then into a run, like an obstacle, something like that. A great guy, a great podcast is the Mike and Booker podcast. You know what I mean? With Mike Wadango from Freak Strength out in New Jersey. You know what I mean? I really like the content that Zach Evanesh puts out in Jersey. You know what I mean? He's another local guy who I've talked to on Twitter a little bit. I mean, and he kind of gets it. You know what I mean? He's working private and there. And good old Michael Boyle. You know what I mean? Like, especially on social media, like people keep trying to prove the guy wrong and argue with him, but like more and more, I see it like you keep it really simple. You know what I mean? Like it's not that hard for these kids. You know what I mean? I like his book. There's a good book that a lot of my mentors have read. It's called The System. It's by the old school strength coaches with Al Miller, Al Vermeer, and Johnny Parker. Rob Panarillo, PT, who is actually based out of New York as well. And what was I going to say? That's pretty much it. I know there's a lot of people. Like my Twitter feed and my Instagram feed is filled with strength coaches. You know what I mean? Like so, like another great guy I like to see on Instagram, and I should probably reach out more, is Paul Jackson. You know what I mean? He's been awesome on the social media. He gives a why. You know what I mean? He posts a bunch of videos and he shows, I think, what true training should look like.
Yeah,
for
sure.
You know what I mean? Like, and like, I don't like to see training videos of like one guy doing like 5 different exercises and like it being that, you know what I mean? Like, there's hype videos are always great. You know what I mean? But like, if you're going to go reach out for an educational resource, like there should be some substance behind it.
No,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, just don't go look at something and be like, oh, I'm going to do that exercise. You know what I mean? Like know the why before that. You know what I mean? I do like, and I do a lot of, so like I'm going to self-educating. So if I see something, I'm not going to just do it. You know what I mean? Like that would be my biggest advice for like younger strength coaches. Like if you see something and you think it looks good and you think it can translate to training or to sport, reach out to somebody that you know that's doing it or read about it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And also you got to train too. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that's a great educational resource for me because I've had lots of injuries and surgeries, and I've been able to, with helps of actual physical therapists, but like doing some reading and stuff like that too, is like keep myself healthy and get back to training form so that you're able to see what works. You know what I mean? Like the strength coach that just reads. You know what I mean? Nobody's ever gonna believe you.
Yeah,
you know I mean? Kids aren't gonna believe you.
Yeah, you gotta put some stuff into effect. Yeah.
You know what I mean? You gotta put some stuff into effect. Jim Wendler's 531 is really good. I think we're gonna probably do some stuff like that with the high school level. I think. Yeah, that's coming up soon. And I mean, triphasic is triphasic. You know what I mean? Everybody should read that book. Every single person ever. Not everybody should be doing oscillatory exercises.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I don't think everybody, especially just know your population. Yeah. But like, you know what I mean? Like people know that eccentrics and ISOs work. You know what I mean? And you got to work speed as well. You know what I mean? You got to work all ends of the spectrum.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And stay well rounded. But I think those are really the guys that I go for. And obviously, like any. Talking to you, you know what I mean? Like you're an educational resource for me. I mean, if we can talk about, like we always hop on the phone and always have good conversations about college football world and any of the buddies that I've ever worked with, and they're always great. You mean you can always learn. You can always learn. For sure. Yeah. And it's fun. I mean, that's why I like this podcast too. Cause I mean, and same goes for you. Like just our conversations alone, you know what I mean? Just from the phone calls that we've had, obviously I always pick up a few things here or there just like notice like, oh yeah, it's a different perspective. It's a different way to look at it, a different way to think about things. So this was awesome, man. I really appreciate you hopping on and doing this. You know, if you know, well, hopefully maybe we could do like a round 2 sometime or something like that, you know, after you get your new weight room set up and everything like that. Yeah, 100%. I'll have to come down there and maybe throw some weight around. You got to come down. You're in Connecticut, you're not too far. You're trained right away. I'll pick you
Yeah,
up
not
at
too,
Penn Station.
yeah, not too bad at all. Not too bad at all. We'll get some Italian pastries or something like that. So
Yeah.
we'll lock it in. But yeah, Rob, appreciate it, man. Thank you for doing this. I wish you the best of luck, obviously, and we'll chop it up soon.
Thanks, Tony. Really appreciate it, my man.
All right, have a good one.